You've been living with a lie so convincing it's stolen years from you, and you never noticed. It tells you who you are, what you deserve, when to speak and when to stay silent. It's shaped your friendships, your career, your love life, and it's been wrong about all of it. You feel it in those rare, unguarded moments. When you achieve something you swore would change everything, and it changes nothing. When you smile in conversation, but feel a quiet ache in your chest. When you wake at 3 a.m. and realize you've been chasing someone else's idea of a good life. That's not anxiety. That's not failure. That's the truth, pounding on the door of the illusion you've been protecting. In the next 15 minutes, we're going to tear that door off its hinges. You'll see exactly how your mind built this prison, why you've mistaken it for freedom, and what happens the moment you step outside. This isn't safe philosophy. This is demolition. The Stoics called it dying before you die. Jung called it the death of the false self. And if you stay with me, you'll feel the ground shift under you before this is over. But before we can break you free, you have to see the prison you've been decorating. And once you see it, you'll never unsee it. You live inside a story, a carefully constructed narrative about who you are, what you're capable of, and what life owes you. You didn't write this story alone. It was co-authored by every authority figure, every disappointment, every moment you chose safety over truth. This story has main characters: the responsible one, the creative one, the broken one, the strong one. It has plot lines. I'm not good with money. I'm not the type people fall in love with. I'm too old to start over. I'm too damaged to be truly happy. And here's what's insidious about this story. It feels like identity. It feels like home. Even when it's suffocating you. Watch how you defend it. Someone suggests you're more capable than you think, and you immediately list the evidence for your limitations. Someone sees potential in you that you've never acknowledged, and you feel almost angry at them for not understanding your story correctly. You've become a prisoner who's fallen in love with the cell. In your relationships, you perform the character you think they need. At work, you play the role that keeps you employed, but slowly kills your spirit. In your own mind, you argue for your limitations with the passion of a defense attorney. And the most terrifying part, you can feel it happening. You can sense the gap between who you are when no one's watching and who you pretend to be when everyone is. You know there's something authentic in you that rarely gets to breathe. But questioning this story feels dangerous, because if you're not who you think you are, then who are you? If this spoke to you, hit the like button and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss future videos. The child in you learned early that reality could be overwhelming, that the truth about people's motives, about life's randomness, about your own powerlessness was too much to hold. So you developed a genius coping mechanism, selective perception. You learned to see what you needed to see to survive emotionally, to interpret rejection as protection, to mistake intensity for love, to confuse productivity with worth, to believe that if you just got good enough at pretending, the pretending would become real. This wasn't stupidity, this was intelligence. Your young psyche creating a buffer between you and a world that felt too harsh, too unpredictable, too demanding. But that same mechanism that saved you as a child now distorts everything you touch as an adult. You filter out information that challenges your self-concept. You dismiss opportunities that don't fit your story. You push away people who see through your performance because their clarity feels like judgment. The philosophy that breaks your illusions asks, what if the very strategies that helped you survive are now preventing you from living? You've become so skilled at managing reality that you've forgotten how to experience it. So practiced at controlling the narrative, that you've lost touch with what's actually happening. So committed to being right about your limitations that you miss every piece of evidence that suggests you're more than you know. And somewhere deep down, you can feel it. This exhaustion that comes from fighting against what is. This constant tension of holding a version of yourself that requires so much energy to maintain. There's a moment in every awakening when you stop trying to fix yourself and start trying to meet yourself. When you realize that all your self-improvement has been another form of self-rejection. The philosophy that breaks illusions doesn't promise to make you better. It promises to make you real. What if your depression isn't a malfunction, but a natural response to living an unnatural life? What if your anxiety isn't weakness but wisdom, your nervous system's way of saying, this doesn't align with who you actually are? What if your failures aren't evidence of your inadequacy, but information about what doesn't fit? What if your patterns aren't proof of your brokenness, but clues about what you're truly seeking? This is the first crack in the wall of illusion, the radical idea that you might not need to be fixed, that you might need to be freed from expectations that were never yours, from identities that never fit, from dreams that belong to someone else's idea of success. The Stoics understood this. Marcus Aurelius wrote his meditations not as philosophy for others, but as a practice of seeing clearly, of stripping away every story that stood between him and reality, of meeting each moment without the filter of how it should be. But this isn't passive acceptance. This is active engagement with what is, rather than constant battle with what isn't. When you stop fighting your nature, you discover it. When you stop trying to be someone else, you find out who you are. When you stop defending your story, you finally get to live your life. But what if this clarity is only the surface of something more powerful waiting in the shadows? Every person has a shadow, the parts of themselves they've exiled, denied, or buried. The anger they've learned to call passion, the neediness they've disguised as generosity, the selfishness they've hidden behind sacrifice. Your shadow isn't your evil twin, it's your disowned vitality. Jung knew that what you reject in yourself doesn't disappear. It goes underground and runs your life from there. It shows up as the things that trigger you in others, as the behaviors that emerge when you're stressed, as the dreams that both terrify and fascinate you. The philosophy that breaks illusions says, what you're hiding from is what you need most, that part of you that feels too much. It's your capacity for passion, that part that wants more than you think you deserve. It's your life force refusing to settle, that part that gets jealous, possessive, or desperate. It's your heart demanding to be taken seriously. You've spent so much energy trying to be good that you've forgotten how to be whole. So much effort being acceptable that you've lost touch with what's authentic. But here's what happens when you start integrating your shadow. You stop being so afraid of other people's judgment because you're no longer judging those parts of yourself. You stop being triggered by others' flaws because you've made peace with your own. You stop needing to be perfect because you've embraced being complete. The dark parts of you aren't obstacles to your growth. They're the raw material for it. Your jealousy contains information about what you truly want. Your anger holds energy for necessary change. Your sadness carries the depth that makes joy possible. And if you stop running from it, you won't lose yourself. You'll reclaim yourself. There's a quiet dignity in admitting you don't know who you are, in letting the carefully constructed self dissolve without rushing to build a replacement. This is what the mystics meant by ego death. what the existentialists called authentic existence, what depth psychology recognizes as the necessary prelude to genuine selfhood. You don't become yourself by adding more. You become yourself by subtracting everything that isn't essentially you. Every role that feels like performance. Every belief that came from fear. Every dream that belongs to someone else's vision of your life. This falling apart isn't failure, it's emergence. Like a snake shedding skin that no longer fits. Like a butterfly dissolving in the chrysalis before it can fly. Like a seed breaking open to become what it was always meant to be. The person you've been trying to become, that perfect version who has it all figured out, was always a prison. The authentic you doesn't have it all figured out. The authentic you is curious instead of certain, responsive instead of reactive, present instead of performing. In this space of not knowing, something real can finally breathe. Your actual preferences instead of your programmed ones. Your genuine responses instead of your conditioned reactions. Your true desires instead of your inherited ambitions. And here's the paradox. When you stop trying to be someone, you become yourself. When you stop performing your identity, you discover it. When you stop defending your story, you get to write a new one. So if you've been waiting for permission to be yourself, this might be it. In a world that profits from your insecurity, choosing authenticity is a revolutionary act. In a culture that rewards performance, being real is a form of rebellion. You'll notice it first in small ways. The way you breathe a little easier when you stop pretending to be interested in things that bore you. The way your voice changes when you speak from truth instead of strategy. The way relationships shift when you show up as yourself instead of as who you think they need. Some people won't like it. They were comfortable with your performance because it made them feel safe in their own. Your authenticity will be a mirror they're not ready to look into. But others, the ones who matter, will meet you there. In that place where masks aren't necessary and pretending feels exhausting. Where you can be tired without being weak, uncertain without being lost, human without being broken. The philosophy that breaks your illusions doesn't promise an easier life. It promises a life that belongs to you, not the version your parents imagined, not the one your culture demands, not the one your fears have constructed, yours. And in the end, that's all any of us really have. This one life, this one chance to find out who we actually are beneath everything we've been told we should be. This one opportunity to live from the inside out instead of the outside in. The illusions will keep calling. The world will keep demanding your performance. The voices in your head will keep insisting you're not enough as you are. But now you know, those are just stories. Old stories. Stories you didn't write and don't have to keep telling. And in the space where those stories used to live, something truer is waiting to be born. Something that was always there, just waiting for you to stop looking everywhere else and finally come home. Something brought you here. A question, a feeling, a pull. Don't ignore it. The next video dives into something most people never notice. But once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Go there now.